Machu Picchu was closed. And I learned that the hard way. Unless you want to do the 4-day Inca Trail hike, the only way to get to Machu Picchu is by flying to Lima, Peru, flying to Cusco, taking a train to Aguas Calientes, and taking a bus up to the top of the mountain. It's an enormous journey, but it's one that thousands of tourists make every single year. And this year, I was going to be one of them. But after traveling thousands of miles across the globe, they wouldn't let me in. This is my friend Caroline. She lives in Baltimore and met me all the way down in Lima, Peru to begin our journey to see one of the 7 wonders of the world. It was the start of a once-in-a-lifetime experience, but we were taking a risk in a way. See, December through March is the rainy season in Cusco. While it's very dry and beautiful this time of year in Lima, the Andean mountains see considerably cooler temperatures and much greater rainfall during the summer months. There are often even closures at Machu Picchu during these months due to landslides as a result of the rain. We decided to visit in January, right in the middle of it all. So we knew that rain and fog was definitely possible. And we were okay with that. We were hoping and we had our fingers crossed that we didn't get hit with any sort of natural occurrences. We did get held up, but it wasn't because of the weather. We got off the plane in Cusco, which is a pretty comfortable flight. We were booked to see Machu Picchu the next day, which meant that we had the entire afternoon free to explore Cusco. We grabbed a meal at a famous Peruvian food spot in town called Pasha Papa. It came to us highly recommended and we were very excited. We got these empanadas as our starter, and they were truly some of the best things that either of us had ever eaten. I mean, just look at these bad boys. Soft and delicious, very flavorful, super fresh. This was the last moment that things were perfect. Okay, have you ever eaten guinea pig? No? Well, in Peru, and more specifically in Cusco, guinea pig is a pretty common meal. We had to try it. I will eat most things, but I actually couldn't even finish taking a single bite. It has this sort of greasy texture, which felt a little uncomfortable to chew on. I rarely spit my food out, but I have to admit that it did happen here. Little did we know that this was just the start of our issues.
I think I got altitude sickness.
Lima is at sea level, 0 meters, 0 feet. That's where the body performs optimally as far as oxygen levels are concerned. On the other end of the spectrum, altitude sickness generally becomes a possibility at around 2,500 meters. Cusco is 3,399 meters or 11,152 feet above sea level. For comparison, Denver is about 1,600 meters in altitude. If you've never felt altitude sickness, you're lucky, not everyone does. I did. It's a familiar sensation. Basically, you just feel short of breath, kind of like if you had just finished a run. The difference is that I felt it almost all the time. Now, I'm not an athlete by any means, but I am a very good walker. You know, I'm a traveler, so oftentimes I'm walking over 30,000 steps per day. So I'm never in any way winded just from walking or even climbing stairs. No, this sensation was new. The locals say you're supposed to drink coca tea and chew on coca leaves in order to alleviate some of the symptoms of altitude sickness. It's actually something that's illegal in the United States because it's the same leaf that's used for cocaine. Don't worry though, you're only getting trace amounts from this. For me, the altitude was very limiting. Caroline, on the other hand, is superwoman. I mean, she had no issues at all. But I started to worry that I would be too sick to visit Machu Picchu, that I would have to stay in bed, or that I wouldn't have the strength in the altitude. If you're planning to visit, you absolutely need to take the altitude into account. Give yourself a good couple of days to ease into it before you try to do anything arduous. But ultimately, that is not what stopped me from visiting Machu Picchu. It was something else. I got a WhatsApp message at about 10:30 p.m. that night, about 5 hours before we were supposed to be picked up to go to Machu Picchu. It read, "Good night. We inform you that departures this morning have been canceled due to the stop at Machu Picchu." What the hell? What does that mean? What is the stop? The locals were protesting and blocking the train rails. Getting to Machu Picchu isn't easy, and they know that by blocking the trains, they will be able to cause a disruption and really make a statement. The people are upset about the Peruvian government's decision to privatize ticket sales to Machu Picchu. The tickets had always been sold on the government website, but now sales and thusly a portion of the profits were going to go to outside businesses. This is making the local people nervous. They're worried that other aspects of tourism to Machu Picchu will also become privatized, taking larger and larger amounts of money away from the locals and into the hands of business people. They're fighting a good fight, and it's an important one, but not one that I was hoping to find myself in the middle of. It was morning, I was short of breath, and we were still not going to Machu Picchu. Now what? We took a few minutes to wallow in our frustration, but I'm an optimist and we had one more day in Cusco. So we rescheduled Machu Picchu for the following morning with all the hope in the world, and we planned lunch and a city tour. A simple day in Cusco. We had lunch at Chicolin, which is probably the fanciest and most famous restaurant in Cusco. And let me tell you, eating here will lift anyone's mood. We shared the octopus tapas and the gnocchi, and it was one of the best meals that I have ever had in my life. Truly. One of the best parts of visiting Peru, and honestly most of Latin America, is the low cost of living. It applies best to food, and eating a high-end meal on a balcony overlooking Cusco only cost us about $20 per person. It's honestly mind-blowing. Make plans if you can to go to Chicolin. Pro tip, order an iced tea with your meal. Caroline says it's the best iced tea she's ever had. It's also best when you like and subscribe. I have a whole video dedicated to food in Peru coming very soon. You don't want to miss it. Thank you so much. Everyone talks about Machu Picchu, but no one ever talks about the other famous historical sites that are all around Cusco. If you didn't know, Cusco was the capital of the Incan Empire. Our walking tour took us to 4 of the most famous Incan sites in the area, and I didn't even really know that they existed. Sexy woman. No, that's how it's pronounced. Come on, stop being immature. It's this incredible structure made of huge rocks, including the 12-angle stone. The science of the Incas to be able to move these rocks around was amazing, and everything they did was to ensure that this structure would last forever. And it has. We also saw Coricancha, which is the Temple of the Sun, and Kenko, which is an actual real-life space that was at one time used for animal and human sacrifices. When we were finished, the guide assured us that we would be able to go up to Machu Picchu and that the protest would be finished the next day. And so I was clinging on to that hope as I headed for bed. Late that night, we got official word. He was wrong. Our trip to Machu Picchu was canceled once again. We would find out later that many more days in the future would go on to be canceled due to the protests, and even some of the walking paths used for the Inca Trail would be closed off. So instead, Caroline decided to spend her day doing the next best thing, hiking the Rainbow Mountain. I, on the other hand, was too nervous about the altitude, which I was still being affected by, to go on a hike. Rainbow Mountain is even higher than Cusco. It's actually the same elevation as the Mount Everest base camp, and I was certain that it would make me sick. So I stayed in town. I was on my own, and after checking out of the hotel and walking around the town, the weight of the disappointment hit me all at once. We were not going to Machu Picchu. We flew over 4,000 miles with multiple stops, layovers, and delays just to come up a few miles short. It felt like a failure. I mean, honestly, it's the first big travel hiccup that I've ever experienced. But just when things felt really terrible and my mood was at its lowest, I looked up. And you know what? The sun was shining. It was shining brighter than it had been ever since we arrived. And it hit me that we had chosen to travel to Cusco, Peru during the rainiest, ugliest time of the year. And yet, we had been experiencing almost 3 days of perfect sunshine. So I stood up and I walked to the tourist office and I booked something, anything. I just wanted to be out in the sunshine, enjoying the area, instead of moping around thinking about what could have been. I booked an ATV tour, which would take me to Morada de los Dioses, which means abode of the gods. Now, this is a tourist trap, okay? Don't get me wrong. It's a recent art installation that's intended to draw in tourism. It does pull from Incan lore, and there are some pretty cool sculptures, but it wasn't the rocks that got me. The ATV ride up through the mountains and back, as the sun shone down on my face and I looked out over the valley below, reminded me that each and every experience is unique. Experiencing Machu Picchu can wait. Yeah, it's still on my bucket list, but just because it's a place that has been deemed one of the 7 wonders of the world and it has this gravitas surrounding it, doesn't inherently mean that it's a more valuable experience than any other. I reunited with Caroline, who had just come off the Rainbow Mountain. She said that the hike she took was a life-changing experience and that she wouldn't trade it for anything. And, you know, I think I felt the same about my ATV ride. The whole situation reminded me of this story told by Angela Bassett's character to Jamie Foxx's character in the Pixar film Soul. If you haven't seen it, give it a watch, trust me. In the movie, she says, "I heard this story about a fish. He swims up to an older fish and says, 'Excuse me, sir, I'm looking for the ocean.' 'The ocean?' the older fish says. 'That's what you're in, right now.' 'This,' says the younger fish, 'this is water. I'm looking for the ocean.'